Welcome back, episode 16 of Meaningful Times with Friends. Nathan from Newark, Ramshackle Dan, Jason at home location, and Ramshackle Dan as well. And I mean Dave, in case people haven't figured that fucking out by now. Yes. So here we are. We are in the midst of very tough times, and there's a topic that people really want to avoid right now, and it's not easy to talk about, but I'm going to talk about it because it was brought up in our chat, and I think it warrants some level of attention, and that is Christmas. It's Christmas time, and none of us like it. It's the Christmas time, whatever you want to call it. If you want to be all inclusive, it's Hanukkah season. It's Kwanzaa. I don't even know what Kwanzaa really is, but I know it's included now. And if you're Jehovah's Witness, welcome to just another day. But that's one of the things we were talking about. You guys, I don't even remember the chat that we had about it. Oh yeah, by the way, there are apologies. Ramshackle.
Last episode, I was asked to recount a very personal story about what would be, for most decent people, a traumatic series of events. Fortunately, I'm unencumbered by the trappings of morality and emotional health, so I gladly recited, to the best of my ability, the story of my stepfather, porn, and him spanking what appeared to be a borderline micropenis. Unfortunately, I made the mistake of misremembering a very minor detail of the story, and I misattributed the star of the movie, Things Changed My First Time, as Christy Canyon, when in fact, it was Nikki Dial. After opening up my heart to the viewers of this fine show and sharing with you what I thought was an interesting and somewhat humorous story about growing up with an alcoholic Vietnam vet who likes to beat off to stolen porn, this crew decided to ignore the forest for one tree and ferociously pick at one tiny nit, which was literally the least important detail of the story. Because of that very minor indiscrepancy, I am forced to drag you all through this completely unnecessary correction, and for that, I am deeply sorry.
I don't know. I didn't really feel that sincere, but I guess we'll accept it. Nobody made a big deal about that. When I'm putting these episodes together, I have to, check out stuff to make sure that images align and all that. By the way, my Google search is completely fucked thanks to all of these episodes where I have to find images and look up Things Changed My First Time and stuff like that. But I got the cover image, and Christy Canyon's not on the cover, which then, she's a star at that time. Yeah. So naturally I was like, let me look into this further, because you mentioned the sequel or the prequel. Sorry, there was a prequel. And so I couldn't find the prequel in Christy. I was like, maybe Christy was in the prequel. And so let me look at her filmography, thus also fucking over my Google search algorithms and whatnot, and looked into it. She didn't have any nothing things change or anything like that. I even looked into some of the sequels. She had some movies that had part ones and part twos. I looked into those. None of them, like, you might have confused that. So I didn't know what star you were talking about, and I just mentioned, like, hey, I don't think Christy Canyon was the star of this. Just FYI. So we left it in there. I didn't want to, make a big deal about it. But then you said you'd write an apology. Yeah, you said you want an apology. So, and thank you for clearing that up, man, because we want to.
Yeah, no, I rewatched both of them.
I'm sure Christy Canyon appreciates the apology.
Our audience demands the honest truth. So.
Well, it's really Nikki Dial too. I totally forgotten about Nikki Dial, and she's a star in her own right, and also Deidre Holland. Mm-hmm. I totally forgot about her too. So, it was, in the end, I think we all came out winners. Nathan found out some interesting fact about Christy Canyon, who made him feel a little bit closer to her as a fan.
Yeah, I'm half Armenian, and I didn't know that Christy Canyon was Armenian, which explains a lot about my youth. I think I'm genetically predisposed, or was at age 14, to digging on Christy Canyon. It all makes sense now.
I think anybody who's heterosexual male was predisposed to digging on Christy Canyon. But what was the discussion in the chat about the holiday season? You guys mentioned it, and I really didn't know what you were referring to.
Yeah, I think it was just more around. I don't know how it started, but I think all of us have somewhat unconventional views on Christmas. I don't think we just go, like, as soon as the T-12 happens, we go into just like straight up Norman Rockwell mode. And so I think we all have we have varying degrees of it for varying reasons. We all have different somewhat different lifestyle setups. And so I think it's kind of a marriage of like your personal beliefs, your childhood relationship with Christmas, and then your kind of current situation with your significant other, and in my case, with a like kind of a full nuclear family unit, and then kind of our different views on it, not being religious, I think also, you know, and Christmas for a lot of the country, a lot of people, isn't really a religious holiday. And then for a lot of people, especially where I live, it's a very religious holiday. And so that's where we're kind of talking about what varying degrees do you celebrate or not celebrate?
That's right.
And
No,
like, how do you feel
I
about
kind
it?
of remember what was brought up because we were talking about what we all dealt with, I think, growing up. Well, let's go around. Let's go around. We'll start with our least talkative person, Jason. What
Oh,
uh,
good.
what are your thoughts on the holidays?
Well, for me, Christmas is primarily a season of family obligation. I don't want to, shit on anybody else's good times, so I try to take part as much as possible. But then every year, inevitably, at this point, just my mom, uh, will ask me, "What do you want for Christmas?" And I just say, "I don't know, nothing." And then I said, "What do you want for Christmas?" She said, "I don't know, nothing, I guess." And I was like, "Okay, great. So, maybe I'll see you in January." You know,
Perfect.
like avoid the Christmas crap. But at the same time, this year is going to be my mom's first year. Well, not it's actually second year. My father passed away last year on the 20th of December.
Yeah. Rest in peace, John Wrinkle.
Oh, yeah, thank you.
100%.
So this year's going to be a little. I feel like my mom's going to have a rough time of it, but unfortunately, like I can't really afford to fly out there for Christmas, and up until like, in the past few years, like I've been going to visit my folks around January or February instead of doing the Christmas thing because ultimately it's just like I said, it's an obligation thing rather than a celebration thing. So we just kind of been time shifting it, but this year is going to be kind of weird uh because of my father dying last year and everything. So I don't know. For me personally, Christmas is it's just another day. I'm not really festive, never was, haven't been really festive since I was a child when it was just, free stuff day. Uh, I don't know. I never really got it aside from the typical kind of American capitalist vision of it. Christmas is kind of boring and mostly inconvenient. That's kind of how I see Christmas. Since my family is all, kind of spread out now instead of together, it's just kind of just yet another day. And
Touching
I'm bummed
story,
out.
Jason. No, I think it was moving.
Yeah.
That was good. We pictures of sugar plums just there.
Fuck is a sugar plum?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know
I've
either.
always kind of wondered about that too, and a figgy pudding. I don't know what the
Yeah,
fuck
and
that
why do
is
you
either.
need fucking? I don't know what it is, but I want it right now.
It's that well,
Exactly.
it's one of those again, one of those random Christmas kind of just things. A Yule log. I never knew what a Yule log was. Always sounds like a turd.
It's a very
Roasting
festive
on
winter
chestnuts,
turd.
chestnuts roasting on an open fire. Who roasts chestnuts ever? You know.
Maybe Jack
I think
Frost.
as a kid, when I was with my Cub Scout group, we went to Ardenwood, the farm they have out
Yeah.
there. And I think I may have had chestnuts roasted sometime in 1985 or something like that. But it was one time and one time only. They weren't that good. I'm being completely honest.
Yeah. See.
Yeah, the figgy pudding thing has like strong Veruca Salt vibes.
Mm.
It's all very British.
Yeah,
It's
100%.
Yeah, that's
Daddy, I want figgy pudding and I want it right now.
they wrote the songs, so I guess
Yeah.
that's why. Nate, your Christmases?
I think my dislike of Christmas is sort of multifaceted, and it's changed over the course of my life. This time of my life, I don't really celebrate Christmas at all. Like my wife, when I first met her, we established very early on that I'm not into Christmas, and she was like on board. Like I was like, I don't want to like create an issue with you that I'm not gonna like do the Christmas gift exchange. And she was like, fine, that's totally fine with me. And the first year we were together, I bought her a gift feeling guilty because I was like, maybe she's doing that woman thing where she's like, nah, I don't care about Christmas. But then if I don't buy her something, she'll be like, why didn't you get me something? So I went out and bought her something the first year we were together, and she was like, I didn't buy you shit. So I was like, okay, this is right on. This is exactly what I'm looking for. We haven't exchanged gifts. We've been together almost 14 years. We don't exchange gifts. I don't exchange gifts with my family. My mom will send me a card with like money every year, and I always feel really guilty because I ignore Christmas, and it makes me feel like sort of bad inside because I feel like we're all sort of ingrained from an early age that you have to take part in this capitalistic orgy, basically. And it's taken a long time for me to get that out of my head. These days, I've been working as a scheduler at my work for the past almost 9 years. And so the Christmas season is crushing when you're dealing with a staff of 50 people who either want the holiday off or don't want to work the holiday if they're part-time. And so trying to schedule a staff of that many people this time of year is stressful as shit. People coming to you, you know, they earnestly like or just want to spend time with their kids during Christmas, and you're like, I don't have anyone to fill in for you. It just the whole thing. That's the most stressful part of the holidays for me now. I kind of laughed at people that get that seasonal affective disorder where they're like, oh, it's dark out. That makes me sad. I am that person. I hate the season that Christmas falls in. Like, I'm a summer person. I want it to be light as much as possible. The darkness makes me feel trapped and just being inside constantly. So it's like multifaceted. Like I said, like there's a ton of reasons why Christmas just kind of bums me out. And so, you know, I'm not a Christian. I wasn't raised Christian, and there's all kinds of reasons why I sort of dislike it and kind of object to it. So there you go.
So you could break Christmas into, you could break it into like several phases, right? You have your gifts, you have your music, you have your decorations, you have your movies, which I'll leave that one to you, Dave, because I know that's something. There's certain Christmas movies that you enjoy. And then there's another category called lies. I'll say this, like growing up, I didn't enjoy Christmas. I basically was a shitty kid, and I would try and sleep in and just refuse to come down so I could ruin my parents' Christmas. And it was mostly just an aggressive act because I was pissed off because I didn't like my stepdad. I don't know why. He's such a great dude. So I would just try and make it shitty for them. And I just like refused to come down until like 3 o'clock in the afternoon so they couldn't have their Christmas morning, which in retrospect was stupid and petty and I shouldn't have done it. But the one thing I do like about Christmas prior to having kids is the tree and the lights. Like I do like Christmas lights. They're cool. I used to have them up, year round. And then I like the smell of the pine tree and I like having it indoors. It's stupid, but I like it. So when my kid was 2, I drove him, and I didn't talk to my wife about this. I drove him to the Christmas tree lot to get the tree. And I said, hey man, is Santa a real person or pretend person? And he's like, a real person. I'm like, nah, he's a pretend person. And he's like, really? I'm like, yeah. He's like, okay. And you know what? Like, here's the thing. And here's like a ramshackle life hack. Like, there's nothing wrong with lying, but lying for no reason makes the big lies a lot harder to maintain. So you got to pick your spots when you lie. And like lying about the fucking Easter bunny or the tooth fairy or Santa Claus, that's like a fucking zero gain. Like it's all risk, no reward. So dude doesn't believe in Santa, doesn't believe in the tooth fairy, none of that shit. And he loves all those holidays because it's free shit. And that's what kids like. They like the trees. They like everyone around. People are in a good mood and they get free shit. And so the whole Santa Claus lie thing is completely unnecessary. And so that of all the things about Christmas, that's the part that fucking drives me insane about people. It's like, I can't believe you said that to him. It's like, I can't believe you lie to your fucking children. Like I'll fucking die on this hill. And the music sucks. It's not that the music, like each song in and of itself is horrible, but they are pretty bad songs. But the problem is there's like 10 or like 15 of them and they just fucking go on and on and on. And most like covers of them are the same. Or if they try to like hot dog it up, they're actually worse versions than the originals. And I think that's probably the biggest part. I would say I would rank like lies as like the shittiest part. The tree and the lights is the best part. And the music as probably the second worst part, because not only is it terrible music, it is omnipresent, except for the Neil Diamond Christmas album, which is beautiful. Back to you, Dave.
Funny thing to me about Christmas and the season, the holiday season in general, there were 2 things that I've enjoyed thoroughly. Not exactly from the start in one case, but I enjoy them and they have kind of a a melancholy that's accurate in just in hearing about the season from you three, and I'm sure other people feel the same and don't know why it is that these are like Christmas things. The first is I love the song from the Peanuts Christmas, the Christmas Time Is Here song. That's like the one Christmas song that I enjoy because it sounds sad. It's
It's so sad. Yeah.
and it was one of the things that, like, when Charles Schultz died, or even before he died, I think. But Robert Smigel made a TV Funhouse where he takes Jesus and he goes through all of these different current American kind of scenarios of just horse shit in our culture, from like a TV evangelist to some other TV host, and Jesus is just seeing all of these rotten, shitty people just all over the place. And it's just like, no, and it's during the Christmas season, and he just keeps passing through it all. And then he comes to like a storefront of this TV store or whatever. There's a TV in the front window, and he keeps just magically changing the channel. It's just all this bullshit. And then it comes to the Peanuts holiday special, and it's Linus, the one with the blanket, right? He's doing this speech about. He just says this. He has this little speech that's just about the spirit of Christmas, citing even, I think, a Bible verse or something. But it was just hearing the innocence of a child, of a character that's a child, talking about kind of the spirit of the goodwill spirit, and of being, good to your fellow people and whatever. And it brings a tear to Jesus's eye, and then he starts dancing, and they're playing the Peanuts music. They weren't even playing the theme that I'm talking about in that cartoon, I think. But I think they did say rest in peace. I think it was after Charles Schultz had passed. And so then they played that music out to commercial. But that song is just something that I like because it's a melancholy song around Christmas. I like, Jason pretty much stated it. For me, it was raised like a family obligation. I might have thought I believed in Santa at one point, but what I remember, my earliest memory of like Santa shit was, I remember my dad or my mom, it was probably my dad, I don't know who, but when my mom and my dad were still together and we were at the house in Fremont, they had a white carpet. And I remember somebody to maintain the illusion of Santa, they put footsteps on the white carpet. And, if I were some kind of like, some criminal investigator, I'd be like, well, why are the steps only going to the tree and not leaving? Like, I'm not a sharp kid or whatever, but it was an elaborate kind of thing. And I remember kind of thinking like, huh? Like, and just, I just remember that. My parents would probably give more of an accurate, testimony as to whether or not I actually believed in Santa, but I don't think I did really. I don't think I really cared, because just like what Ramshackle said about the little one, it was more about like, oh, this is the time where we get stuff, and then also kept having to be told like, no, it's about giving. You also got to get, you got to go through the process of getting stuff, and it always felt like an end of the year exam. It's the only thing that comes up that gives me the same feeling as like a test is coming up that I haven't studied for, because I procrastinate a lot. I try to go throughout the year, because I go to do different gigs in different places. I try to look for things to get for my family that are unique and interesting, that I don't think would just be like a waste of money per se. Sometimes they are, but it's more just like, oh, they'll like this. And I end up just kind of like getting stuff throughout the year. I'm like, can't we just have like, throughout the year, all the year's Christmas, and just by the end of the year, you got to make sure you get one random thing for each person who's important to you in your life, and we'll call that Christmas. That to me just feels better than putting it all on this one fucking day. But however, that's me now. As a kid, see, I remember, wanting stuff. Obviously, I like toys. That was the thing when you're growing up, you like toys, and my parents would hook me up with some cool stuff. It wasn't like always, my mom would be very frank with us about like, well, Santa's only able to like do this or that or whatever. I'm like, how does mom know? There was within reason, kind of aspect to Christmas. And I knew it was, you got gifts from other people. I have a lot of family. And then when my family divorced, they successfully remarried, which added way more family. So there was a lot more obligation. I think the main thing it gave me, as I got older, it gave me a lot of anxiety about having money to be able to afford to buy gifts that weren't terrible for everybody, but also wanting to be within reason with them as well. Because I'm like, Christmas brings out the worst sometimes, and I'm a petty person. So it's like, I hate nothing would feel more, defeating than it's like, oh, I thought I put some thought into a gift and like, oh, cool, they're opening it and they like it. And then I see what they get me, and I got, gift that's like, didn't have the kind of thought that I put into theirs. A thoughtless gift. But that's me being selfish again. And that's not the spirit of Christmas. It should be giving, not receiving. However, we all know that's horseshit.
Another strategy which I applied, and again, I'm a troll at heart more than anything else, if you were to break it down, was I got so sick of this shit about the gifts that I started buying everyone the same gift, everyone out of Sky Mall. It had to come out of Sky Mall, and it had to be completely useless.
That's a great idea.
And so one year I gave everyone slippers with headlights, like LED headlights, and literally identically wrapped, just stacked every single person, like mother-in-law, her partner, my mom, stepfather, wife, just everyone got the same freaking box. And I did this for years. The problem was people loved those gifts. I thought they were stupid, but they're actually pretty good.
Your idea backfired.
It did backfire. And I got my mom one time, and Jason, I think you'll appreciate this. I got her a clean room, this box. It's a mechanical thing for clean rooms. Whereas you walk in her house, you step into it, and it wraps your shoes in plastic. And she got it just as an act of pure hostility, because my mom is
your feet are now hermetically sealed upon entering.
Exactly. Why'd you get me this? I'm like, seriously? She still has it.
I would think that would appeal to her.
Exactly. But anyways, it's I just turned the whole gift giving thing into extreme trolling.
I think Dave really hit on something with that, because the idea that the holidays are supposed to be all about being giving and taking enjoyment with giving. And one of the things that I enjoy about getting older isn't the inevitable decline in your health or losing your eyesight, going bald, all that typical old person shit. It's knowing who you truly are. And I think one of the things that always made me miserable about Christmas was that I am not a giving person particularly, and going into a mall and trying to figure out what the perfect thing for my mom is, or my dad, or my wife. I'm not good at that. And I think that's one of the major factors that made me miserable about Christmas, which is why I'm very happy not to deal with it now.
You know what I found for my mom this year? I just found it yesterday. It's a broom with a vacuum attachment. So I found it in the Sharper Image catalog, and I'm gonna fucking buy that today. I'm gonna send it to her. And if she doesn't like it, I don't care. That's a perfect gift for that woman. If she doesn't like it, she's wrong.
Well, see, good. You have the right intuition when it comes to buying gifts.
I like getting stuff for the obviously people that matter to me. When I'm like, oh, they would like this. There's something to forced thoughtfulness, just as you described. I remember that, where it's like, all right, I got to go to the mall.
Yeah, I was always that guy on Christmas Eve who was like, shit, clock ticking, gotta fucking buy some shit.
I got to go through all this stuff. And once my parents divorced and then remarried successfully, the other thing that kind of came into play, unfortunately, was having two families that, loved us and cared for us, that then my mom and my stepdad were the family that we lived with, and we kind of understood them a little better. My dad and my stepmom, I love them to pieces. And but it was, being shared in different environments with kind of different value systems always is tricky. And it's stuff to this day that, I don't have the easiest time talking with my dad about, without him getting defensive. He can be objective sometimes about it. My stepmom, love her dearly, but she still to this day will be like, where's your Christmas list? And that's it's part of, her process of and they do this every year. I go to their house, I get anxiety just looking at all of the Christmas stuff that every year my dad had to take out of the storage to put up. Luckily, they don't put lights on the house anymore, I think, because they don't really have a whole lot of people going by their house. But when they used to, I used to have to help them putting lights up, Clark Griswold style on the house. And my mom and my stepdad too. I would help them. I don't remember, but I remember my dad always be like, "Dave, come on, we got to go do it." I'm like, "Why do we have to do this?" It's one of these things because he never really enjoyed it, but he had to do it to make Vicky happy, I'm sure. And I'm sure he had some thought of joy about it that he was kind of not willing to admit. Once it got to the actual, ritual of the Christmas, I like Thanksgiving. I like the spirit of the season. Oddly enough, there's something I don't mind. I do like the darkness. I like the melancholy and I don't look at it as a joyous thing. I look at something about the obligatory misery makes me smile. There's something to seeing like this forced,
Were you raised Catholic?
Not raised. I would say that it was like an attempted raised Catholic.
Were you baptized Catholic ever?
I was baptized, but I didn't do communion. I didn't go to catechism and all that bullshit. Thank God, because you know what monsters were lurking in those churches. Typical Americanized Mexican family. They were Catholic, and I went through some of the Catholic stuff. My mom also took us to the other church that my English grandmother would go to, which I believe was Episcopal, or I don't know. I don't have time to split hairs about shit that I'm not interested in. I remember at times, because of the hassle that Christmas could be, hearing about Jehovah's Witnesses and how they didn't practice Christmas. I'm like, yeah, I wouldn't get stuff, but peace of mind is something that that's a gift that is endless. In terms of I don't have to do this stuff. And sometimes this stuff is more trouble than it's worth, even for the little smidgens of joy that you do find in it. Now, for the most part, I think fondly of my upbringing. A lot of times, I do talk about the negative aspects of it because, I don't mind being negative or talking about negative stuff. It's okay. And I don't have to take it personal or whatever. I didn't like the feeling that because of the gift, the emphasis on gifts, then it forced me to have to be mindful of my mom and my stepdad's ability to get gifts and my dad and my stepmom's ability to get gifts. Any divorced child who is shared that has parents that are not exactly, friendly, they compete. It can get competitive of, you don't want to get what they're getting for them and this, that, and the other. And really at times there's just I don't want to get anything, because I don't like the feeling of making one feel lesser than the other. And I'm not trying to put anybody in that position. Here's the thing. I love having stuff free, that has no strings attached. That's not possible in this scenario. As I got older, I was very conscious of receiving things from my father. And it's nothing against my father. My dad likes to be helpful and he likes to be giving, but there are strings he's unaware of. And we don't have those kinds of conversations. We just recently started having one about stuff like this, and it's not comfortable territory for him. And I think part of that is too, the guy grew up poor he grew up in a very poor family, and had some taste of the good life when I guess he had an aunt or somebody that was doing better than my grandparents. And he got to live with them for a minute. And I think she died or something. And he got this taste of the good life for a minute where he was special, unlike, the family that he was, raised with. And I think it had made an impression on him of something to work towards as he got older. And there's something to those, kind of people that come from nothing and make something and yada, yada. And, I don't know what that feels like necessarily. I'm just an average suburban kid. And now I look at it, I have a room full of stuff. I don't have a lot, right? But I have way too much that I look at. I'm a collector of stuff. And I'm now 47. I was just talking to my mom about this when I was visiting them recently. It's now I'm in this process of even though I just have this small room that I rent and I have all this stuff here, I'm I don't need all this. I don't use all this. I need to start getting in the process of getting rid of stuff. And it's but can I give 7 inches to my family for Christmas? Because I got plenty of those that I don't listen to that much anymore. Just things like that. The other thing I liked in Christmas was the movie "It's a Wonderful Life." That's the other part of Christmas, and
I've never seen it.
you should watch it. It's
One of the most depressing movies ever.
I love
It's
it because of that.
it's
Yeah, it is.
Is that the
It's like-
Jimmy
it's like
Stewart
this-
one where he's like, "Merry Christmas,
Yes,
everybody"?
yes,
Yeah.
and it's not even that much of a Christmas movie. It's really
You
more.
sound like Mickey Mouse.
It's more of a. It's more of a.
Hey, that fella down there sounded like a Mickey Mouse.
It's more of a
Yeah.
Twilight Zone episode than it is.
It is
Christmas movie because
but
I mean it's black and white. I remember when I first saw it, I didn't want to watch it because I was a kid and I had a prejudice against all black and white movies. I was like, it's black and white, it means it's old. I don't want to watch it. And it wasn't until I was in my teenage years, after I got into the Twilight Zone, I was watching it one time I think it was probably at my dad's house. And not only did I get a crush on Donna Reed, but the story itself, I was like, holy shit, this is like a Twilight Zone episode because it's dark. It's about a dude who keeps making choices where he's dropping the things he's wanting to do to help people in his life that need his help. Just everything he's doing, he's having to sacrifice one of his personal ventures to be of service to others. That's the moral of the story of just,
at what point does he offer to Donna Reed to lasso the moon?
That was during their courtship, man, when they were walking home from the dance, dude.
So this is the thing about Christmas movies, and It's a Wonderful Life's a great example of this. It's like fucking 80% like an hour plus of misery, just gut-wrenching like pain and like misery, and at the end everything turns out okay. But like, why would you want to put yourself aggregately through all that shit?
I don't think it's so much of everything turns out okay. I mean, it does, but
It always does.
it's a different type. It's not like Miracle on 34th Street where there's, where the Santa is real. It's not like, I mean, I like A Christmas Story. That's another good, fun Christmas.
It's kind of like A Christmas Carol though, right?
It's Frank Capra definitely making his own version of Christmas Carol or whatever.
Christmas Carol, yeah.
Yeah, it's his version of it, but instead of trying to teach a rich guy the principles of goodwill, he's trying to show a guy who was doing more goodwill than he realized the value in what his existence meant.
Right. The point is, it's 5 parts pain and 1 part joy, and why the fuck would anyone want to sit through that?
I do.
Can you imagine a community coming together to bail out a savings and loan? Like, that's got to be the most far-fetched
That is
part of
that's
the
why it's a
entire
movie.
thing.
That's why it's a movie. But
yeah, I mean, credit union maybe, but yeah, SNL no way.
Yeah, no.
But no, when you say why would you sit through any 5 parts misery, 1 part joy, that's what it's like being friends with you, Ramshackle. So I mean, that's but yeah, I do love It's a Wonderful Life. It's an acquired taste, yeah, and it also was a movie that bombed at the time and became more of a Christmas movie over time. It wasn't Die Hard, where it was a hit at the time in the summer and then became a Christmas movie later during the most idiotic times of existence. But so, anyways, that's pretty much my story for Christmas. I don't mind it. I deal with it. I try to embrace the better aspects of it. I like getting gifts for people when I'm excited about the gift, when I'm kind of reaching that point where it's like, I got to get something. Yeah, it gets a little more anxious and all that. But I tend to pull through. Some years I do it better than others, but in the end, I know that it's something that means something more to my parents, and I like to. My parents have been good to me, so I try to be good to them. So really, that's kind of the bottom line. But as far as I'm not. I got my 2 Christmas sweaters, Melvin's and Sleep. So I got band Christmas sweaters that I wear from time to time. But other than that, we're good. And I think we've talked enough about Christmas. I think we got through all that. We're good. I think
Merry Christmas, Wyatt.
Yeah, Merry Christmas and Kwanzaa's and Happy Hanukkahs. All right. In the ever most briefest way, it's not a topic that any of us want to talk about, more so than Christmas. This whole notion on social media that if your mind isn't consumed with a trendy ill of the world, then somehow you are complicit and all that. And I'm like, we've already been complicit as American citizens with a lot of evil in the world that we don't want to, it's just not popular. But the popular one right now is what's going on in Israel and Palestine, and that we have to have some kind of thought on it, or that you have to pick a team, or that you have to have some kind of perspective on it. And I think being a child raised of having my Saturday morning cartoons interrupted constantly by everything, every terrorist activity and every ill that was going on the other side of the world. Yeah, I've been fairly conditioned to be somewhat apathetic towards knowing that we live in a never-ending war-based economy, and that requires there to constantly be ill in the world in order to sell weapons and whatnot. So I don't know how to approach any of this. I don't know if any of you really want to talk about any of this, and I don't care to if you don't want to. But if you have anything to say, speak now or forever hold your peace. The evil of inaction is what a lot of people want to refer to it as. That if you're not constantly posting on social media about whatever other people, the injustices that exist, it's one thing, yeah, if you're on social media, because I guess, that means you have idle time to be on social media. But a lot of the world ain't on social media. A lot of the world also is just trying to get through their daily miserable existence. And a lot of people, I think, just are feeling powerless over a lot of stuff, and then they project it onto the evils of the world that are going on. I don't agree with terrorist or the appearance of terrorist activities. I don't agree with bombing people on any level. If you're going to have a war, yeah, I think both sides should be armed suitably to go and do that if they're going to have a war. But I don't think this is necessarily a war. I think you got ants in the house and you want to burn down the house to get rid of the ants. That's just kind of how it looks like to me. But anybody, feel free to speak up, God damn it, or else you're part of the problem.
Here's something fun. On Saturday, Biden went around Congress to approve emergency sale of 14,000 rounds of tank ammunition worth more than $106 million to Israel. Did I say to Israel already? Thereby proving that, yes, the president can go around Congress. And yes, the president can act when he fucking chooses to do so. And gee, thanks, Biden, for sending more fucking military aid to an aggressor who's vigorously exercising their power to destroy the people and land and infrastructure and just about everything of Palestine. That's great.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
It's good. Look, I'm a comedian, and a lot of times people expect that because there's like the comedians. There's some comedians who, yes, love to embrace whatever tragedy immediately happens, and immediately they think they need to either have a take or turn something into a joke just to like acknowledge that, yes, there's bad going on in the world. Well, to me, it's looking to comedians for that is idiotic. It's like, comedians, yes, we are just trying to give you dopamine to take your mind off your troubles. Does that mean, and some people are talented enough to do it while bringing in the very subjects that are troubling and might even have some perspective or whatever. But that gets watered down the more that the oversaturation of the desire to do it without the talent and insight and ability to do so. And so looking to comedians to sort of like constantly address the ills of the world, that's like, to me, it's like after 9/11, after the towers came down, it's like, hey, can David Copperfield, can he get his fucking magic suits on and maybe bring those buildings back? Because it's just stupid to me to look to entertainers to address tragedy.
I feel way more strongly about the absolute fucking shittiness of David Copperfield. It was ridiculous. Like, he's going to walk through the Great Wall of China, and he goes into a fucking booth, and there's a shadow, and there's a booth on the other side, and then he goes like for like 20 minutes, and then he's in another booth. Like, okay.
It's magic.
Like, that's a trick. And then he made the fucking Statue of Liberty disappear. Like, what a shitty magician. He's not even a magician.
All this stuff does is make Banksy look that much cooler when he does stuff, because Banksy's art, at least Banksy has done art on the wall in between Israel and Palestine, and that's takes some balls to do, because that place is not friendly to strangers.
I want to say one thing about David Copperfield. He was great in Terror Train, the Jamie Lee Curtis slasher film.
But did he do one of his stupid tricks in that movie?
He did a lot of close-up magic for that film.
Ah, real magic.
Pulling
Got it.
quarters out of ears.
Yeah.
See, this is what happens when you bring up a serious subject with the meaningful times with friends. We get on to tangents of magic.
Well, all
And
right.
if you really want a tangent of magic, go watch The Amazing Burt Wonderstone. All right, that's a great, underrated movie.
That is
wonderful performance by Jim Carrey as a Chris Angel mockery. So,
what was he called? Brain rapist.
Yeah.
It was a take on Chris Angel's Mining Freak, and it was I can't remember his name, but he called himself Brain Rapist. That was fucking brilliant.
That was a brilliant performance.
Actually, just watch the Jim Carrey scenes. That's all you need to watch.
That's really
some of the funniest shit I've ever seen in my life.
So here's my thing. I don't want to get overly serious, but I've always been an anxious person. All of you have known me for a very long time, and you're aware of that. But it's gotten markedly worse as I've gotten older. If you're dealing with mental health issues, at least for me, it's become one of the defining things in my life, and trying to figure out how to control anxiety to the point where I have to stay off social media for the most part. I have to abstain from overindulging in the news, which is extremely difficult because I work in broadcasting, specifically in the news industry. So I tend to be overexposed to a lot of the stuff that people are harping on social media. And it seems like we're living through an extended period of some kind of omni crisis where there's always a war, there's a pandemic, people are worried about global warming ending the world in a matter of years. I mean, it all piles on. And I think a lot of my anxiety is largely based on sort of this feeling of doom and gloom that exists in the world, specifically with this stuff. So I found that I'm avoiding it for the most part, not because I want to stick my head in the sand and not engage with it, but because it's like for my own self-preservation. Like I cannot just sit on Twitter and look at people freaking out or taking sides with this vitriol. It's toxic to my soul. So the Israel-Palestine thing to me just feels like another brick on top of this like feeling that's existed since kind of like the Trump era of just like everything is just horrible and awful, and now like we're all divided over it, and it all feels like a continuation. I don't know how to be articulate with my feelings on the matter because it just ends up making me feel stressed out and horrible. So I think when we were discussing this initially, it was my typical response that I just kind of want to avoid it all. But I find it all very distressing, and I can take minute amounts of news a day. I'll get up, I'll check the news. Has anything major happened? Okay, go about my day. I don't think I need people freaking out on Twitter or whatever the fuck it's called now to help form my opinions on that. So that's pretty much all I have to say.
And that's really good. If you look at like self-help books, one of the main things they'll tell you to do is stop reading the news. Because
that's what my therapist says to me every time I talk to him too.
Because like even if you were like so fucking knowledgeable and you just nailed it and you had the right answer for the Middle East conflict, what are you gonna fucking do about it?
Yeah,
nothing.
Shit. Yeah,
and it's like the old Serenity prayer, right? It's like why would you get all worked up over something you have absolutely no control about? I'm gonna go like full tinfoil hat on this one.
Go for it.
Like literally, my screen is full of a tinfoil hat. Okay. So most of what you see on the news is a lie, and it's propaganda intentionally designed to distract you from the real problems. And what are the real problems? The fact that food, fuel, everything has gone up exponentially in the last few years, right? Your cost of living has skyrocketed. The economy is going in the shitter, and the people in the government are parasites. They're all criminals, and they're all lying to you. And so what they do is they drum up social issues to divide us and have us talking about shit that doesn't matter. I always tell people, make a list of the 10 things that are most important to you, right? Like for just this next week, like what are the things that are really concerning you? None of this shit that they get you worked up about. All of these fucking social issues, racism, right? Abortion, Israel, Palestine, Ukraine. Now, COVID was different because they forced it on us. Like this was part of your everyday life. You could not escape it, which was fascinating to me. But as soon as that started waning, Ukraine popped up. And right before that was Afghanistan. And during that, they had BLM. All of these things are happening, but they push it to you in a disproportionate way to keep you distracted and keep you sad. And when you're sad and stressed out, like you can't take action and you can't make your life better.
A lot of times you go shopping to feel better.
Yep. You go shopping. Yeah. And you hit the dopamine, right? You eat shitty food. You buy shitty things you don't need because you're stressed out and sad. And it's intentional. I'm telling you, I mentioned this in episode 1. Watch Noam Chomsky's documentary, Manufacturing Consent. It makes a lot of sense. And the dude is a fucking like left-wing guy, but it's applicable to both sides in terms of that. And so when you start talking about Israel-Palestine, I find it very odd that it conveniently popped up right after people lost interest in Ukraine. And you know what? After this, there's going to be another thing and another thing. And oh, by the way, the fucking world's going to end in 2000. I mean, it's going to end in 2007. I mean, it's going to end in 2017. I mean, it's going to end in 2020. And now it's 2030 where the fucking earth is going to boil over and we're all going to die. It is basically a nonstop barrage of shit to keep you afraid and keep you from actually seeing the real problem, which are the fucking corporations, the oligarchs, and the government. All right. That's my take.
Wu-Tang. Right on. There you go.
It's that old Omni crisis, never ending.
Jason, we need to yank your thoughts out of your dog's butthole, as we've mentioned before. So you have nice articulate thoughts.
No, I think Dan pretty much said it. I mean, it's true. Unfortunately, there's really no strategy that to improve things, which which sucks. But like I had the same problem where several years ago, like I had to stop watching the news and listening because I would walk my dog and listen to the news, and I would just be in a terrible mood and be angry. And it was just like everything was terrible, and I just kept feeling worse and worse. And I'm not saying that my consumption of news contributed to it, but then I ended up with congestive heart failure, and I almost died. And it didn't exactly give me a new perspective. It just made me feel really awful, and I needed to be on oxygen. So I was instead walking around with an oxygen tank and feeling terrible and listening to the news constantly and just really hating life. And I would talk to my parents, and every time I would try to, kind of catch up with them, it would end up devolving into me like ranting about like whatever news item I had been listening to just prior to giving them a call. And they're like, we're going to send you some audiobooks. Maybe you should try listening to those when you walk your dog instead of the news. And that actually helped quite a bit. Because, everything is terrible. Everything's going to be terrible. The best I can do is just kind of try to survive and do what I can to be good to people in my life and on the street and in the world. And unfortunately, there's not much more I can do than that. And so I just kind of have to accept that. Being the example of what I think people should behave like is the best I can do. And I do pay attention to the news still, obviously, because I just that item about Biden was from yesterday. That happened yesterday. But I try not to let it consume me because that's fucking useless. I don't know. At a point in my life where everything that I had thought was stable kind of fell apart after about 20 years. I spent, 15 years in a job that I considered my career, and that went away. And then simultaneously I was tremendously ill and bedridden almost bedridden, not quite bedridden. I don't want to exaggerate, but I basically spent a year in bed, and then I spent 2 years depressed and trying to figure out what I was going to do with myself. And then the person I was closest to in the world that I lived with and spent the past 20 years with died. And I had to figure out what I was going to do with myself because I could, I'm paying for this apartment by myself. There are a million things that are affecting me personally that I have to deal with. I can't give so much energy to problems that I can't solve. So,
nor do other people are looking to solve themselves.
The world is complicated and fucked up and weird, and I just try to do what I can to make sure I can survive. And that's all that I can do. I don't know.
A lot of the trouble that I've seen from what I'm seeing today is there's this aggressive attitude that if you're not boasting about some injustice and you have to be on the right side of whatever this circumstance is, that somehow there's something wrong with you. And it's only on social media, but it's happening in the world too. This whole subject has got Jews in Israel at each other, because there's people that agree and people that disagree with what is going on that their government is doing. And there's no doubt innocent people that are being hurt. There's always been a lot of attitudes that have been, anti-Semitic in that part of the world. And I think a lot of times people want to overlook that because, as we mentioned in our earlier chat, for some reason, the way that a lot of our perspective on what's right and what's wrong and the righteousness of things has to do with our perception of aligning with the underdog, which it's funny that Nate mentioned it earlier, because I think us being both, of Mexican descent, Mexicans tend to align with the underdog against all. You're just going to root for the underdog, even if they're doing wrong. And I'm not saying that in this circumstance, but what we're seeing is, even after the initial October 7th attack or whatever happened, there were people that were automatically responding like, well, yeah, that's what happens when, you displace people, and occupy their land and da-da-da. And it was coming, a lot of those messages were coming from people living in America, which, as we know, is territory that was colonized and occupied and pushed people off of land. It's just, when I look at it, it's like, wow, this is a trending war. It's a trending thing, because after 9/11, what did America do? America went to war with a country that wasn't even involved, and then proceeded to plow through other countries throughout the area that had no direct ties, and manifested, they whipped up ties or any pretext just to go into certain areas to do a whole military agenda that had no doubt other capitalist purposes. And people protested. My parents protested. I think South Park had a funny episode about it, about how being in America means you can have your cake and eat it too, because you can go attack some country and have people saying that's wrong at the same time. It's one of those scenarios, I think. And not only that, these are issues with an area that came long before I was here. And it doesn't mean that, I'm absolved of any ill or whatever. I'm like, no, I'm compromised. I've been compromised since birth, as far as whatever has been going on here. Remember when high school, when a fight would break out, people would all rush to it to go, like, you could see like a rush of people going to some area, because you could tell a fight was going to break out. And that was just the primitive behavior of human beings. I would walk in the other direction because I don't want to see that shit. I never cared for it. Again, what social media ends up doing is something is going on, and the hive mind ends up all going towards it, and then tries to behave like, oh, something's wrong with you if you're not part of this, and trying to have some, devote all of your mental and energy into this. I think it's cool if you're trying to protest or whatever for what you think is right and all that stuff. I don't think there's anything wrong with any of that, but I also know, I'm like, well, if you really feel that strongly about it, well, I'm sure flights are pretty cheap to that part of the world right now. Why don't you go fly there and go see, put your money where your mouth is. And there's people that are trying to do good over there that are finding it impossible, obviously, because it's deadly and it's dangerous. And what can you do? I don't know. I don't even think, voting, whatever the fuck. This is a kind of an enemy that's so powerful. What the fuck are you supposed to do?
Shrink your world. Worry
Right.
about your friends, your family, and maybe your community, and that's it. And
Amen.
I think, like most monsters, and this is maybe a little bit of hopeful thinking, the monster is so big right now that especially at like the international and federal level, there's not much you can do, and even at the state level. And so everything that you can't do anything. Voting doesn't help because you're voting for the lesser of two evils. I mean, for God's sakes, look at the presidential options.
Yeah.
It's over in terms of that stuff. That stuff's gone. So the best thing you can do is worry about yourself and your immediate, maybe your city and your county. But other than that,
That's why I love Mike Bucci. Vote for
there
Bucci
you
for
go.
mayor of Newark when he's
But,
on the ballot.
but that
Man.
makes sense to think about that. Like, it's someone Dave knows. Dave knows he's a good person, and it's your community. It's our hometown. So, like, why not focus on that? Why not focus solely on that?
I've even butted heads with them, man. Not a bad guy.
You know what though? If you hadn't gotten into him, if you haven't had conflict with him, I would challenge the fact that he's actually your friend. So
he's an awesome friend. All right, we can breeze through this last topic of the day, which I think is perfect because this is an issue that is close to home, and that you do need to be aware of, everybody. And that is Panera Bread is trying to kill you through their lemon. Panera Bread has charged lemonade, highly charged lemonade. 2 deaths already been attributed to this monstrosity of caffeinated lemonade that people think is just harmless. All right.
Yeah. So what this is a bottle of caffeine pills. It's 200 milligrams a pill.
Ooh, it's pretty strong. Yeah, you don't want to take more than 2 of those a day. That's the
right.
the recommended minimum or maximum dosage of caffeine per day, according to just the generalized shit on the internet, is 400 milligrams.
FDA. This bottle says these are 200 each, right? And then I think you guys can probably do the math yourselves. Take 1 tablet up to 3 times daily. Allow 3 to 4 hours between servings. Do not exceed 3 tablets daily. So that's technically this one's saying 600, and that's liability, right?
But that could be, but it's mainly, this was just like generalized. Like if you look it up on the internet, that's what like your standard,
sure.
But Googling will pop up. And the Panera Bread lemonade, as I've seen it, when I looked it up, it had, let me
370
see,
or 380 or something like that.
It was 260 milligrams in a
Child's play
20-ounce serving and 390 milligrams in a 30-ounce serving. Which then made me was like, man, I need to go get some of this fucking lemonade, dude. That's good energy drink levels. And I haven't tried one yet. Most energy drinks, people think like a Red Bull is an energy. Red Bull is actually fairly tame. They're little standard 10-ounce cans with sugar is like 100 milligrams caffeine. The sugar-free ones are 80 milligrams. So you could have a few of the smallest cans and be fine. Most brands are like somewhere between, like even rock stars are like between 150 and 200. A lot of them, the ones that you like Monster and all that, they're more around the 120 to 150 range. So they're not even as strong as they advertise. The strongest energy drinks, however, are Bang, which lives up to its name. Bang is like almost like sponsors recovery motherfuckers because it's got 300 milligrams, and these Reigns. Reign also has 300 milligrams. The one that I found that's a Safeway brand, though, there's one that I have that it's called Wired. And it boasts 300. It boasts 344 milligrams in a terrible tasting drink that you can get for I think $1.20, and it's a good sized can. But I've had those, and those will definitely fuck you up. Like yesterday, I drank one of those and a couple Red Bulls, and throughout the day, so I exceeded the 400 milligram dosage.
Why not just take caffeine pills?
Because I like the drinks, man. I like I've taken caffeine. I've had caffeine gummies, and I got a head change. If I take caffeine to the degree where it feels like a mind-altering substance, I shouldn't probably take those. But if I just want kind of what feels like a pick-me-up, I usually only drink them before performing. So that's
back in the 90s when I used to work weird hours. I remember they used to make these mints, and they were called Penguin Mints. They were caffeinated mints. You ever had those?
Yeah, Mario had them.
Yeah, and I remember I used to down them by the handful, and they just had such a weird chemical flavor. And I just remember they made me feel weird, like way different than than like a cup of coffee would. Like it's like even more jittery than that. I don't even know if those things are around anymore.
They're actually more subtle. I mean, I only take one at a time, but it's kind of a slow climb. And then there's like no decline. Like, coffee, you kind of spike and you get a little speedy and then you kind of crash and then your piss smells funny. Like this this has none of those side effects. Now, if I took like a handful of them, I took like 2 or 3, then I'd probably be kind of out of control caffeinated. But what I've noticed is the arc of it. It's nice. It's much smoother. Because the other thing about that Panera bread, what is it called? Charged lemonade. Yeah, buyer beware, right? Is also a shit ton of sugar in it too. And so you're not just jacking yourself up to like you're not just redlining on caffeine. You're like then you're just dumping a bunch of sugar in there too, and that's where your face is probably going to start getting numb. And I don't know. I mean, if you're going to go out and you're going to buy something called charged lemonade, you're not probably paying a ton of attention to other aspects of your personal health. So, I mean, there's a lot of compounding factors with somebody like keeling over and dying. If you look at the last guy, 'cause someone else died like a couple of days ago again, he had a bunch of other health problems going on. And so I feel like they're kind of scapegoating Panera. And of course, like I think like Chuck Schumer like demanded the FDA take action while he's, go back to our last segment. Chuck Schumer is all about like bombing the shit out of everybody all the time. So it's it's just another fucking giant like sack of bullshit. Like this is our biggest problem is somebody has a low tolerance for caffeine and sugar. Probably not the best thing for you. I would just say like I have this bottle at my house at all times, and I somehow managed not to like take 4. So if I did, I'd probably get really sick. Or if I took 10, right? And you can take that with like anything in your house. Liquor, right? You can get alcohol poisoning. I don't know. Like it's very strange that they select this as such a big deal, but I think it's just the dosage they put it in. But I'm telling you, it's the combination of sugar and caffeine that's probably the magic sauce here. And there's 2 ways to look at it. One, they kind of fucked up by this formulation and didn't really think it through. Or if I put my tinfoil hat back on, maybe it's a marketing scheme and they figured they get a ton of publicity.
I was reading an article where I got this image from actually that it was by this guy that was who was saying that actually it's more akin to kind of your distraction theories. Even though we don't have slow news days these days, they still need all kinds of stories. And these are 2 lawsuits. These people had prior conditions. Panera has done plenty to advertise the charged lemonade as being caffeinated lemonade. They have coffee that's served that has more caffeine in their dosages, and they don't have warnings. Remember the hot coffee that burned the lady kind of lawsuits?
Yeah, McDonald's.
Yeah, because these lawsuits they're both in Delaware, and they're from this one firm. I was just looking at it and looking at the two people. They had these 2 people had conditions. One of them definitely tried to avoid caffeine and was kind of just dumb. And the other person, I don't think they necessarily avoided it, but their deaths were primarily attributed to their conditions and not necessarily that the lemonade was what killed them. It was just that was something that they drank prior to their death, and they're trying to make it kind of a more of a legal mountain out of a molehill. I just think it's funny. Not, do I think people dying is funny? Sometimes. I don't know. Can't live forever, folks. If you're going to go out, why not go out with a good lemonade? I don't know.
It's funny the things that are socially ingrained that we allow, like alcohol, tobacco, caffeine. Because I guarantee you, if coffee were discovered today, and people were like, "Oh my god, I grind these beans down and they make me fucking jittery and I fucking shit right away and I fucking can't sleep because I fucking drank it too late." I guarantee you, we would make caffeine or coffee illegal if it were discovered now.
And it would be even more popular, man. Be snorting that shit. It's like, oh yeah, it's some of that roast.
Well, I used to be a big energy drink. Well, especially when I quit smoking, like to replace that stimulation, I started drinking a hell of a lot of Red Bull for a long time. And but then, once you achieve heart failure status, you kind of have to start. You have 2 choices. You can either continue to eat and drink whatever the fuck you were eating and drinking beforehand, or you can actually change your diet and your habits and be concerned about the health of your heart. I chose to be concerned about the health of my heart because, congestive heart failure, what happens is your lungs aren't functioning. Your heart is not beating properly. So your lungs just start filling up with fluid because the heart isn't pumping the blood out of your lungs. So with congestive heart failure, you just slowly, like your lungs are just filling up until the point where you can't breathe anymore because your lungs cannot take in any air. And so you're walking around slowly suffocating in your own juices. And that is not a pleasant way to die. Rather than go through that again, I chose to stop drinking massive amounts of energy drinks and coffee and shit like that. And so now I keep it down to like one, maybe 2 cups of coffee or tea a day. The first person who died, as soon as I saw that this person was like had a heart condition, I was like, well, what the fuck were they doing drinking a caffeinated beverage if they like are a person who avoids coffee? How are you going to sue?
That's what they're claiming, is that it wasn't marketed properly. They call it charged lemonade, but that
Charged lemonade. It's not
yeah,
like you're getting charged for lemonade. The lemonade itself is fucking charged. I don't know. I think that's a pretty clear distinction.
it's
What I
pretty.
think is amazing is that you can go there and get a cup and just get free refills forever before you know, as long as you're in the shop or in the restaurant or whatever. That's incredible to me. Like, no wonder people are walking out of there and collapsing on the way home.
If you're truly suicidal, I'd go get a cup in the morning of the charged lemonade, just sit there all day, just pounding them in the corner.
You know that the second that people saw that, oh, this lemonade could kill you, people are like, oh, I got to go try that.
Exactly.
That's,
You know, so
that's what I was saying.
they are doing really well with their charged lemonade right
Yeah,
now.
that shit's so powerful it'll kill you. Fuck yeah, you know, it's what plants crave. Brondo.
Yep.
You'll
Yeah.
shit your pants first, and then you'll fucking go.
I'll bet you they could probably bring Jolt Cola back because of this.
Back when you drank, did you ever have the original formulation of Four Loko?
Yeah, I did. I think I did. Yeah, I had one before.
Like, didn't they pull that off the market because of that combination of alcohol and caffeine was somewhat deadly?
It wasn't that. No, it wasn't deadly. It was the fact that people were getting drunk and were so hyper. They were behaving. They were like, it's like, imagine being drunk with a lot of energy. That's what. It's the same thing with like vodka Red Bulls. So
Yeah, they banned vodka Red Bulls in some European countries because you should be passed out at that point of alcohol, but you're still charging forward because you're propped up by caffeine. But again, this is called charged lemonade. What the fuck do you expect? It's called Four Loko. Wait, it makes me insane. How could I have ever fucking?
no way.
For sure.
I do want Jason to make a noise song called "Slowly Suffocating in My Own Juices." I do want to. That just.
It's not something I enjoy dwelling on. When I went to the hospital and my doctor looked at me and was like, "You're gonna die." I was like, "Oh, is that what's happening?"
Jesus Christ.
I just thought I had a really bad chest cold. But I mean, I literally could not take a breath. Like if I talked, like if I had to talk or say anything, like I couldn't breathe and talk at the same time. If I had a coughing fit, oh God, it was terrible. I couldn't lie down because I would immediately I couldn't breathe. I couldn't get any air. And so, you know, I knew that there was something really wrong. But when she told me that I was quite possibly going to die, I was like, oh, okay, well, I can, you know, that's cool. I'm comfortable with that. But that's not the way I want to die, you know, like it's fucked up.
How do you want to die?
Yeah,
Because Christmas is coming up and I haven't gotten you anything.
Yeah.
Well, preferably I'd like to not necessarily be conscious for it, you know what I mean? Like I'd rather not have to experience the onset. But as long as, you know, whatever's quick, you know, that's cool. Like I'm happy to, you know, I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's a wonderful life. It's a wonderful point to reach when it's sort of like, you know, I do like, you know, I'm not depressed. I don't, you know, I enjoy life, but it'll be nice when this headache is over. I won't have to Christmas shop. I won't have to pay taxes. I won't have to deal with, you know, identity theft or anything else that's just
Won't have to hear the Grateful Dead.
One of the prime benefits of death. I didn't even think about that.
Ironically.
maybe that's why they named it the Grateful Dead. Maybe that you ever think of that tinfoil hat? Maybe that was what the name inspired. They play this music so that when you're gone, you're gratefully fucking dead. So
yeah, that's the same kind of mindfuck as Alanis Morissette's "Ironic" being literally nothing ironic in it, making it the most ironic song ever. So same math there.
I guess I don't know. Whatever. I think we've talked a lot and gotten nowhere, which is our brand of doing what we do well. Meaningful Times with Friends. I want to thank everybody for enjoying these shows. Hopefully you had a decent holiday season. Thoughts and prayers to the to all of the shit that's going on, that's bad all over the world that we have no control over. We here at Meaningful Times with Friends, our hearts and minds go out to you, and in a hope that we somehow magically give energy out there that brings you some level of Christy Canyon vibes into your life. Joy is what I'm saying. Joy and big titties, and somehow you can kind of get through whatever, and or big balls and penis for our
Lexington Steel for Jason.
Yeah, for Jason and the Jason side of things.
1980s push. Yeah, there you go.
Just get all that good stuff. But and definitely gonna go try a charged lemonade after this episode. So I want to get on that train.
R.I.P. Dave.
Yeah, man. I'll see you guys. Have a great week. Thanks again. Remember, watch all our episodes. Especially go back, watch the Battle of the Bads. God damn it, whatever. So bye, Wyatt.
Bye, Wyatt.
I'm fucking obsessed with these chib grips as my new guitar hack. They're basically a 3-in-1 tone tool that I can squeeze when I get stressed, hang my keys on them, or put them in my Chibson gym when I need more tone. The best part is they're made of patented tone foam. They're extremely flammable, and they're soft on my bare skin. Do yourself a favor and pick up a chib grip today.